Hello and welcome to the Data Quail's interactive app submission for Datafest 2020. I will take you through a brief tour of our app and show you some features we have implemented allowing you to interact with the data yourself. Here we have our welcome page, which contains relevant information on the structure and design of our app. You can read up on our motivation for investigating internet and device access for education purposes, primary survey information, and have a quick overview of our data source. Navigating to the Map tab shows a map of the US with each state's respective availability score, a score out of 5 representing the availability of either devices or internet in each state. This map here shows the availability of devices for educational purposes for school-going children and for week 1 of the survey. The lighter the state color, the better their availability score, thus the better students can access devices. Similarly, the darker the state color, the less access students have to these devices. We see that Wyoming in the north and Rhode Island on the east coast have the highest availability of devices and Arkansas the lowest. By selecting Internet, you can view students' access to the Internet across the US. Drag the sidebar to see how the availability score changes over time as the COVID-19 pandemic persists. Navigating to the Bar Graph tab shows device and internet availability by certain characteristics. This graph shows the distribution of device providers amongst respondents whose children always have access to a device. We can see the majority are provided by their own homes and a smaller portion by their school. We can also see this has stayed relatively constant from weeks 1 to 4. By changing the availability to rarely, we can see a far greater proportion of households receive their device from some other source. Changing the device availability to never, we see that 100% of households provided no response. This is due to the sampling method in that households that do not have access to a device could not respond to the questions of who provided their device, and thus should not be considered a bias. Changing the characteristic to experienced loss of income shows how a larger proportion of households that rarely have access to a device have experienced a loss of income compared to those that always have access to a device. You can also choose to change the data to display as the total number of respondents rather than a percentage of the total respondents. Consider the case where we measure internet access in relation to food sufficiency. Notice that the light blue section indicates roughly 75% of respondents who said they always have access to enough of their desired food type also always have access to the internet. In contrast, if we consider households that never have access to the internet, a much smaller portion, roughly 40%, have enough of their desired food type, and a much larger portion often do not have enough to eat. As you can see, household income produces similar results. This suggests that households who struggle to provide necessities such as food are more likely to struggle with providing their children with the necessary resources to accommodate for the changes in education style, further disadvantaging these groups. There are numerous other trends you can find by exploring further. Finally, you can find out more about our project members on the About Us tab. Thank you for watching.